What is that thing anyway?
You gotta show us something.
Can I see it?
Whoa, what is that?
I would like to see the baby.
Hey everybody, it's Echo from the Dad Batch podcast. If you listened to last week's episode, you would have heard us talking about the not Anovos / Denuo Novo First Order Stormtrooper kit that came after 6 years of waiting. So if you haven't listened to that episode, check it out. We've got a little more to talk about with the overall kit in that, but I wanted to do a breakdown of all the parts that were in the box. So a bit of an unboxing. I've got all the parts laid out behind me. I'll bring them over here and we can take a look at the pieces individually. So let's grab some pieces and check it out. So the first thing in the box is we've got just a card that's, a little packaging. Got some lightweight instructions. Now, it's worth saying, at least what was in my box, this is the extent of the instructions. So the parts are all numbered, but I don't have anything that tells me what goes where. I'll be honest, I haven't had a chance to look and see if there's anything on the website or wherever to download instructions. I'm guessing there is because I've actually seen people posting stuff about it. But the other thing that's in the box, got stickers. These are for all of the spots on the armor that need to have a black paint application made. I suppose you could actually use this either as a mask to paint them yourselves or just put the stickers in straight away. I will say it's a nice kind of matte finish on the sticker sheet. So it's the appropriate kind of black that you'd want. It's not a high gloss black. It's not supposed to be. So these look like exactly what I would have expected to see for a set of stickers for this kind of kit. The next thing we can take a look at is some of the belt pieces and some of the strapping. The strappings, the bag's got some screws for various parts. I'm sure some of these are used for the detonator and the belt. There's elastic in here and then some Velcro with sticky back on it. I will probably not use this Velcro. Anyone who had one of the standard Anovos Stormtrooper kits would know that the Velcro that Anovos shipped at the time was not really what you'd want to hold up for trooping. So, you can go to Home Depot and for like $20 buy a box that's got name brand Velcro and it has got a strong backing on it, and that is much better to hold up to trooping. So, but the elastic's fine, the screws are fine, I'm sure. So the next thing, we've got a couple of belt boxes. There are two soft belt boxes that go on the First Order TK. They are functional, so they do open up. You could put your cell phone in one, trading cards in another. One gets a piece of armor that goes over top of it, so there's Velcro already installed on this piece, so you can put that armor plate across the front of this particular box. And again, it opens and you could put something in it. Belt loops on the back, so this will go right through the belt. Now the belt itself, this is set up exactly the way you'd want. It's got a normal strapping belt. It's nice that they pre-installed Velcro across the back of the belt, so you could put the hook side of the Velcro onto your armor in the right place, and that will hold this in the right spot. So it's got nice thick nylon webbing, buckle, and then it's already got this kind of floor mat rubber ribbed material. So it's actually exactly what you would be buying from another maker. It's with the kit. It's nice and durable. I think this is exactly what I would have ended up with had I made it myself. So this is great. The next thing we can take a look at is the gaskets. As I mentioned in the podcast the other day, it does come with the gaskets. What you normally would see on a First Order TK is there are gaskets between the thigh and shin armor, so at your knees, and so that's what these pieces are. There's Velcro pre-installed on the top and bottom edges so that you can put the corresponding Velcro inside the armor pieces, and that helps hold everything in place. The knee armor just kind of goes around the middle, and so that's where that would go, but this covers the gap between your thigh and your shin. The next piece is the upper body gaskets. So this goes on. It's got elastic around the top and bottom and then a strap to kind of hold it in place. This covers between the body armor and the shoulder pieces. And then you would see this between the bicep and elbow, or forearm. So, and again, it has Velcro installed on it. I had bought a set of gaskets off of a vendor for the First Order kit that I built that didn't come with anything like this from KB Props. And the kit was great, but it didn't come with some of these extra pieces, and I had to piece that together myself. So this came with these. These are just like the ones that I got. And in fact, I wouldn't be surprised to find out, and I don't know that they'd ever admit it, but these might have been made by the same person who made the ones that I bought for the other kit. They're that identical. Okay, next up is the bag that has all of the resin pieces that come with the kit. And these are actually really clean. I'm impressed. So one of the pieces that is difficult to get a clean resin pull of is this holster. And so I'm going to hold this up closer to the camera here, and you can see the individual lines between the layers, because in the films what this piece was, there was a little piece of plastic that made it line up with the armor, but then there was pieces of layered metal, like cut aluminum, and you can see the actual layer lines here between what would have been the individual layers. Now this belt, this is the holster that goes on the thigh. This one in this state wouldn't necessarily be a usable holster. I've got my blasters are set up with metal buckles on them so that I could actually hang them on a functional holster. I don't think that that would be compatible with this, because they're not actually, there's no overhangs on some of these pieces, so they don't look like they'd actually work. But visually, this does look exactly the way that it should, and it's nice and clean. This could go on the kit with no sanding, no prep work, and it would be fine. The next big piece, this is the heavy one. This is the thermal detonator that goes on the back. I don't know exactly what this weighs, but I will say that this is a heavy piece of plastic to have hanging off of your back for the duration of a troop. So I might look at opportunities to kind of hollow this out. I could put this in a lathe and cut the inside of this out and make it hollow. That would be easy. I could also come in from the back side where no one would ever see it and Dremel some of this material out. There's a few things that could be done to lighten this up. Could always 3D print a corresponding piece. I actually did notice that someone on one of the Facebook groups that I'm in came up with a 3D model essentially of representing this exact piece with all the same details, and so you can print it. It'd be much lighter, and that would be able to go on your kit instead of this heavier piece. Next up, we've got a couple pieces that go on the gauntlet. It doesn't look like they're different from one another from left to right, so we've got these pieces here. Various belt boxes. So some of these go on the ab, on the stomach armor for the First Order Stormtrooper. There are all of these pieces here, and so what you see is there's a cutout, because on that ab armor it's got a detail there that comes out, and so these are all pre-cut. I haven't put these up to the ab armor. We'll do that in a little bit, and we'll see just how clean those are, but these are already cut and they're individually numbered. So again, I'm assuming if I find the instructions online somewhere, they will have the corresponding numbers to go with this. And again, like you can see one of the details here, like one of those black stickers would go in this spot here, and it would fill in that spot and make that detail black. So this is one of the belt pieces here. You can see this nice and clean lines on this. There's nothing, no artifacts of it having been made in resin. They're nice and clean, like everything else that we've seen in these kits. These are the belt pieces that go on that rubber belt that I showed earlier. What I like about this is not only are they individually numbered, but they also have arrows to indicate which way is up. There is a contour built into the back of this with a little bit of a curve. So if you've got these in the right spot, that curve will blend in perfectly with the body armor that's in that location, and it should make like a nice clean seal. So again, all of these pieces are ready to go. You can see here is another section where this has already been cut to fit on the contour of the ABS piece for the abdomen, so that's ready to go, as are the rest of these. These details here, they're labeled front and rear. These are pieces that go on the leg. On the one thigh, or sorry, shin armor on the First Order TK. It's got a couple little details that are on that piece, and they're already contoured in the right way, and also labeled which way is up or down, front and rear. So numbered A and B. So these are set up and ready to go. And then we've got all the little smaller details. So on the chest, there's a couple of these little guys. It does note which ones are right and left. And then there's two sizes of buckles. These are used throughout the armor, on the gauntlets, on the leg armor, even on the helmet, but these one I don't think there'd be any here for the helmet since there isn't one. They're all individually numbered, although there's only two numbers because they're identical between them around the body. So within the two sizes, you can mix and match these. So that's it for all of the resin pieces that came with the kit. These pieces all put together, probably especially because of this one, weigh a lot. I would, without putting it on a scale, I'm going to guess that the resin pieces come pretty close to weighing what the final ABS kit would weigh by itself, mainly probably because of this piece here. Then again, it's also not that terribly heavy, so I do think that this would still be something that could be used as is and worn. Okay, let's take a look at the armor. This is the main chest piece, the most visible part on the whole kit. This is what would be right below the helmet in front of everybody that you'd be seeing. As I mentioned on the podcast, these pulls are nice and sharp. These details here are cleaner than anything I've ever seen on another ABS vacuum formed part. So all the parts are covered in a thin layer of plastic to help keep them nice and clean in the shipping. That would need to be taken off before you'd put this together. Again, all of the parts also would need to be trimmed out. So, there's pretty apparent lines along all of the edges where you would need to cut, and all of the necessary little recesses. Again, this is where a couple buckles would go right here. Black stickers would go in some of these places, some of the resin details that I showed earlier. So this is the main chest part. These two pieces form the back and the yoke. So what happens with these is once they're trimmed out, black details go in these recesses here. This piece actually is combined with this piece, which wraps around the front. So you end up with a single piece that goes around from the back, around to the front, and under that chest piece that I just showed. And the chest piece covers up most of these details. It looks to me like they've got a section here where you could put some Velcro or magnets, and I've seen folks do that, because you want to hold that chest piece in place over this one. And what this does, because that chest piece is a bit of a V here, this fills the gap between that and your armpits, and then also comes up around the neck and then connects to the back plate. So it's an interesting detail. It's unique on the First Order Stormtroopers. The original TKs were not like that, but it makes for a very nice look, and it's not that uncomfortable. A little bit difficult to build. This is one of the areas that you'd need to actually do some body work on, because you'll need to cover the seam between this piece and here where you join the two pieces together. Okay, this is the abdomen or belly armor. This goes over the front, just under the chest pieces that we just looked at. This is the back piece that wraps around the back. Now there is additional D pieces that would cover up the middle of this. So I've seen this typically put together with the front and then cut down the middle, and that middle seam gets hidden by the detonator and piece that goes up the back, which we've looked at the detonator. That was the big resin piece that's the heaviest of all the pieces. And there's a plastic piece that goes with that that is about this wide and covers this middle of this back section. So again, I have seen folks basically join the front and back, hide that seam with the body filler, and then put the seam, a new seam in the back, and that's what gets hidden, and that's how you get in and out of these pieces. There's details on the side that let you kind of line up exactly how that should work and how those would go together. As you can see, those two little rectangles would line up. It's also worth noting that there is sort of a scalloped shape line etched into this that they want you to cut that out. That lets that stay flexible and move with you, but that's actually what gets attached to the belt and the body armor that goes below the waist. One thing that I like about this, and we talked about this when we looked at the resin pieces, is those resin parts are not only numbered, which these individual bump outs, it's difficult to see. I'm almost certain the camera wouldn't pick it up, but these do have numbers recessed into it. So I can see this says 5 right here. This is part number 5. And as you can see, this little raised area right here where it bumps out corresponds with this piece in the resin part. So that actually fits right on there. And if you're familiar with the costume guidelines for this kit, you'd know that they want you to try and hide this seam around here as much as possible, if not altogether completely. I would say that these pieces are a close enough fit the way that they are that I don't think you'd need to do a whole lot other than just fix these on, either with screws, and there are some holes here that look like they could be used for screws, or even just some glue, but they would fit on there. And if I look at these, again, they're all numbered, so this piece here is number 3, this box is number 3 on here, and that fits nice and clean like that. Same thing with this piece here. is number 4, fits right over here, and these seams that I can probably see a little easier than the camera can are completely smooth and approvable kind of in the way that they are right now. Okay, here we've got the butt armor. So like all the other parts, it's coated in a small layer of plastic, would need to be trimmed out. It does have a small etch line here on this piece that looks to be where we would attach either snaps or Velcro that would help this fit in with the belt and upper armor. Same thing on the cod. This goes in the front. Again, a detail line here, and I see 2 locations where it would be good to install snaps so that this would snap onto the bottom of the belt. Okay, so finishing off the torso armor, we've covered the chest and back, we've covered the ab and the back plate, and we've also covered the butt and cod piece. This is the cover piece that I showed when I was talking about the back, how you can put a seam there, and then this covers that seam up. So this is the resin piece. As you can see, it's got little dimples in it here. There are bumps on the plastic part here. This can be trimmed down, and there's a nice, easy to see line that would be your cut line. So we'd cut this, clean that all up, and then this piece gets attached right here. It fits together nice and smooth like everything else. They want this to be as seamless as possible. So you want this line to be nice and clean through here, and it is. That fits nicely. You wouldn't have to do anything other than just glue this together. Probably put some screws in it, I would recommend, since it's so heavy. But then that would make this piece pretty much ready to go. So that wraps up the torso armor. Let's move on to the arms. Okay, here we have the upper arm armor. Here's the shoulder bells. They're pretty much trimmed and ready to go. There's nothing else you need to do to these other than maybe sand the edges a little bit. Don't forget to take the plastic off. I'll say that a million times because I've seen people get their kits together and they don't realize that that plastic film is on there, and then they start trooping and it starts coming off because the glue was actually attached to the plastic film and not the armor, and things don't hold together. Now these pieces also do have another weird little detail. These parts here would need to be cut out, and this extra little reveal that you see just right up here across the top, that gets recessed underneath the top of the armor to make it look like there's like a double lip there. It's a unique little detail. Those parts just get cut out and added onto the shoulder bells the way that they are, and that adds that detail. It's fairly simple. Then we've got our bicep armor. These are different than what I've seen before, so these are a little unique. So if you look, this piece goes mostly around, like 3/4 of the way around your arm. So that part is the bulk of the bicep armor. It's the part that you would see the most. These pieces are much smaller. They would get trimmed out. There's cut lines that you can see here, but those pieces get cut out, and then once this is trimmed up, they get added onto this, and that gives you the full bicep. And they are labeled left and right. Fairly straightforward to see how things line up because of little recessed edges and how that lines up with the other side. In this case, one of those buckles that we looked at earlier that are the different sizes would go over here, and it's fairly simple to see how that would line up, and the buckle goes right there. So that's it for the upper arms. Now let's move on to the forearms, which are actually probably, in my opinion, the most complicated part on these kits. Okay, here we have everything from the elbow down on the arms. I'll start with the simplest part because other than these pieces here, which are the hand plates, fairly easy to see how these get trimmed out and how they cover up your hand. This would go right here on the back of the hand, on the glove, and that becomes your hand armor. Everything else here goes into the forearms, which again are probably the most complicated pieces on these kits in my opinion. So you end up with a piece that goes around the back. This covers the arm this way, and then you've got this piece which gets sandwiched in there, and there are a lot of ways that these can be put together. I've seen it done completely seamless and it just slips on. But in many cases what you find is the wrist opening on these pieces are just not enough for you to get your hand into. So what you see folks doing is this will be split open here and here, and then this piece kind of flexes open with various ways to keep it shut. It looks like there's quite a few options on how this would work with these because it's got not only got the details more or less laid out here, but then there's also this piece which covers that, and then one of these pieces gets recessed in here. So this becomes the details for the final assembled forearm, along with 2 of those smaller buckles that we talked about again. So yeah, all of these pieces go together to make the forearms, and again, rather complicated assemblies, and I've seen several different ways, all of which are completely fine, whatever works for you. But several different ways of these going together. Okay, here we've got the armor for the upper legs. Fairly straightforward. Again, has the same plastic coating. Pretty easy to identify the cut lines on all these parts, so you can follow those lines, get them cut out, and get them put together. It looks like things will line up quite nicely. You can see again where there would be a buckle that would get added in there in that little indented rectangle once they're all trimmed out. And again, on the right leg is that resin piece we looked at earlier with all the details. That becomes the holster for the blaster. Again, the one that comes with the kit won't actually support a blaster from what I can tell, but it does look the part and it's nice and clean. So as long as you're not trying to hang your blaster there and expect it to hold, it would be completely passable. Okay, so here we've got the lower legs. I'll start with the easy part, the knees. There's not a lot to get into on these. They get trimmed. Again, the easy cut line you can see here. A small elastic cord rather than a strap of elastic, but just like an elastic string that you can get at most craft stores is the best way to attach these, because that string will all but vanish as it goes around that gasket that's on the knee. Alternately, you could put a piece of Velcro on the gasket and put that on here, and that would hold it on too. But I've seen it done both ways, and both work completely fine. Now, moving on down the leg, you get into the shin armor. Left and right, easy to tell. It's like everything else, easy cut lines, and everything's in the right place so that when you trim this on the lines will all be at the right angles, and the lines that you're supposed to have in the same places will all be there. You can see where the buckles would get attached with the same rectangle cutouts that they have in, on the other pieces. There's a little detail down here that gets filled with one of those stickers that's black. Now, I do want to get into something here before I get completely into the ankle spats. This little detail is new. My KB Props kit did not have this, but this extra groove along here, if you were to leave all of this on, this will hold the ankle spats in place, because as you trim these, if you leave a little lip on this, it will fit in this right here, and that will hold that together. And that is something that I've seen be difficult to have stay in place. So I like this detail. This is clever because it's a detail on the armor. I think they can get away with it because those pulls are so sharp. They can get a nice 90-degree turn there, and it creates that groove that you can make this fit into, and it essentially makes the spat become part of the shin armor without it being actually attached to it. So you still get a little mobility there, but it'll hold it in place, which is nice. So the spats themselves, there's typically a front and a back, or almost like an inside and outside. Again, most of it's all in this one piece, and then there's just a little cover piece that has some details on it. Easy to identify where it gets cut, and you attach one of those buckles, and this would fit on here in the right place. So that gets us from the knees all the way to the feet. So we've pretty much covered everything in the kit. There's one more piece that is a cover for a belt box I'll pull out here in a second, and we can take a look at that. And we will have at that point looked at all of the armor. Here we've got the last piece of armor that we hadn't talked about yet. This is just a small cover. As you can see, nice and smooth on the front, same plastic as everything else. Nice trim lines. This belt box here that goes on the belt has Velcro on it, and you can take this and attach it with some Velcro on the other side of this, and it gives you the piece that covers this box up. Okay, so something that I wanted to take a look at here as well is the color of the pieces between the ABS parts that we've got and taken a look at, the resin pieces that we looked at the beginning, and then this is one of the Black Series Last Jedi First Order TK helmets. And so this is something that's common. A lot of people would probably have this helmet. I do know Anovos / Denuo Novo is making one of these that will be available either later in the year or early next year, hopefully. And I actually do have that ordered, and I will bring this all back up and we can take a look at that when I do get that. But for now, this would be the helmet that I'd be wearing with this kit. It does need some modifications to be approvable in the 501st Legion. Most notably is the speaker holes in the back. Those would need to be filled in and hidden. And then there's a detail here around the front of this that's actually not in line with what you would have seen in the film. So I do know those two details need to be adjusted for this Black Series helmet before it could be approved in the club. But again, this is probably a helmet that a lot of people would start with. Now, the first thing I notice is the color of the white between the Black Series helmet and what I got from Denuo Novo is not identical. This is a much cooler, bright white. This is a warmer color over here on these two pieces. I do think that the base white shade between these two is relatively close. I could probably gloss this resin piece and make it match up to the ABS pieces that came. Now, if I was going to work with all of this, I would probably have to paint all of it and make sure that I use the same paint on all three pieces so that I'd get the right color out of all of it. At a bare minimum, I would need to find a paint application I could put onto this helmet that would make it the right shade to match with these parts. But again, the resin pieces all came in a very matte, flat finish, so at a minimum I'd have to gloss them. Now I do think that there are some details on the armor kit, especially around the legs and possibly the belt and ab, where I will have to do a little bit of body work to fill seams. That being the case, that means that those pieces likely will have to be painted anyways, at which point you're probably looking at painting the whole kit. It's not terrible. Some of the same paint techniques that you'll hear us talk about on the show is exactly what I would do with the 2K clear, and I'd probably put it like a flat black down first because that goes down nice and smooth, and then the 2K clear over that would give me a nice high gloss finish. And if you use that same flat black and 2K clear application across all three of these materials, I'd end up with pieces that looked exactly the same. So that's it for our review of the Denuo Novo First Order Stormtrooper kit. After 6 years of waiting, I'm thrilled to death that it's finally here. I'm pleased with the product that I got, and I can't beat the price for what I paid 6 years ago for it, and the fact that the company is honoring those orders from their previous manufacturer is really something to be respected. So again, I think that the kit itself is nice and clean, quality parts. The bucks are clearly nice and clean. I do think that this will need to be painted. I will know a little more as I get farther into the build on this, but between the fact that the resin pieces have a matte finish, at a minimum they'll need to be clear coated. I suspect just between that and having to hide some of the seams, I'll probably be painting the kit, at which point I need to decide what I want to do with the helmet, because as we noted earlier, the Black Series First Order Stormtrooper helmet and this armor is not the same color. So I'll probably be painting that helmet at the same time if I use that. Hopefully before I get to that point in the build, the Denuo Novo First Order Stormtrooper helmet will ship, and I'll have that in hand, and we'll get a good look and see how that matches up to the armor pieces in their natural state. So I'm going to hold off on painting until that happens so that we can see what that looks like. Again, I think it's a good kit. I'm excited to get building on it, and we'll probably be talking about it on the podcast in our weekly workshops. So looking forward to talking to you all about it then. And in the meantime, we appreciate you guys watching the show and looking forward to seeing you every week. Thanks.